on the call who's new. She's in the Tampa area. So Angie's also in Minnesota. So I'm going to let Angie and Nikki, you guys take it away as always, and we'll just keep adding some people in as they join. And it looks like we're live. So we've got people watching live stream. So we're ready to go.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Carrie. As usual, Nikki, I want to give you the bulk of the call because you always have so much amazing information to share. So
Awesome.
go ahead.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. Interest rates, mortgage interest rates today. So last week we saw some dramatic improvement from the week before, which has been really nice. We're in that high 6, low 7 range, which has been really steady and not much movement over the week, which is a good thing because from the volatility that we've seen over this year, having just kind of a chill week last week has been, one of my favorite parts about the week. So moving forward, we do have some inflation numbers coming in, some core price index numbers and things like that that might make a little volatility in the market. The big thing that we're going to be watching this month, however, is that unemployment rate. So if that unemployment rate keeps going up, that's when we're going to be triggered by the Fed to start lowering those interest rates. So as much as I don't personally want to see the unemployment rate go up, it'd be nice for mortgage interest rates and for our borrowers that are in that shopping mode. So just keep that in mind as things kind of come through. If you do have questions from clients on interest rates, programs, down payments, things like that, of course, you can always reach out to me without them needing necessarily an application right away. We can answer those basic questions and kind of get them on the idea of what does a 6.875% interest rate even mean? What does that look like for the home that I'm purchasing? And we can run those numbers without necessarily needing a full pre-approval. So keep that in mind. They're very easy for us to give estimates and things of that nature. So with that being said, the whole question this week and kind of the buzz that I've heard is the rent versus own scenario. So the New York Times, which is, obviously a pretty powerful and reputable news source, put out in their newspaper today or on their online forum, a rent versus own calculator. And the way that they defaulted the inputs for this rent versus own calculator makes it look like it's actually cheaper to rent right now than it actually is. So to give you a little bit of perspective, so what they were doing on their defaults is they were comparing a $500,000 purchase to paying $2,000 a month in rent, which if you really wanted to, which is very misleading in general, because if you really want to talk about if you were to rent a place that is worth 500,000, I mean, you're looking at a rent of somewhere around 32 to 3,400, depending on where you are in the nation. And so it was kind of misleading in that way. The other thing that they did is they indicated that the home value would only appreciate by 3% in 2024, which in reality, those numbers are coming in around 4.5 to 5%. So that's kind of a misleading part about it. They also said that the year over year rental increase would only be at 3% as well, which we all know is not true. We know that the actual rental increase or the numbers that are coming in for rent year after year are 4.5 to 6%. So a little bit of misleading information. If you use their numbers, it looks like, hey, you should probably rent for the next 10 years because you'll save $133,000 when all things are considered. But if you put actual numbers in there and are even conservative on those numbers, you're actually better off buying by about $250,000. So these are including national averages and things like that. Now, whether we get into the minute details of the, actual numbers, the message that's being sent out there is really what's happening. It's another misleading message about rent being cheaper than mortgage or being cheaper than housing and purchasing right now. So it's one of those things where it's influencing how your buyers are looking at things or potential buyers who are in rental situations, how they're going to be influenced moving forward. So it's important information to know. Ironically enough, I was watching the news this morning in Arizona, and they did a news story on home prices across the nation going down in 2024 or decreasing 4%, and the cost of the actual home decreasing 4%. But what they went on to say is these are winter numbers, and we don't really know what's going to happen with the spring numbers. Well, it's not really a news story because, again, it's winter months. And in most areas across the nation during those winter months, the cost of housing does go down. It's a cyclical, natural process because there just aren't many people willing as many people willing to move in the winter. So I guess the theme of, this week and kind of to keep things in mind is talk to your potential buyers, talk to your sellers, talk about what they're seeing on the news, what the what social media is telling them, what all these sources are, and help them bring reality to it and help them bring logic to it. For whatever reason, because there aren't a lot of homes on the market or the inventory is down, a lot of the media is pushing back and saying rent, 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 when we all know that it doesn't matter if you actually run real numbers. The cost of buying is always going to win out over the cost of renting. And that's been the way since the beginning. So it's just one of those things to keep in mind, how to have those conversations and make sure that you can speak with confidence and know that, the numbers don't lie. When they really look at dollar for dollar comparison, the numbers don't lie. No, we're not going into a housing crisis because we went down 4% nationwide over the winter. Appreciation is a year-long thing, not just a winter thing. So keep those things in mind when you're talking to your buyers, talking to your sellers. There is some things that you can do with your buyers to help encourage them to purchase sooner rather than later. Even though it is spring and summer months, there's going to be more inventory and there's going to be more available opportunities for negotiation. So keep that in mind as you're talking to buyers and sellers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just can't emphasize enough of why this call and calls like this are so very important for us as agents. Because if you think about that, now what can you do with this information? You can actually call out that article where they say rent versus own in the scenario and come from contribution, come from education, and show them why you're the expert. You will push back on it, but you push back on it with authority, with statistics, with actual facts, or they said this. In reality, if you look at XYZ, it's this. And think about how much you can so very quickly elevate yourself to be the person that they want to come to for the actual information. Because most people, not all, but I will say that most people understand that the media is clickbait at this point. They want you to click on their stories. They want you to come from this fear-based place. And a lot of what they say, or even the titles, or to get you to read more, has to be catchy, and it has to be, something that will invoke fear, uncertainty, doubt, worry, so that you'll go there with them. And in reality, it's not actual factual information. So there's a balance to do that, so that you can be matter of fact about it, but not necessarily arrogant about it. And it is such a dance that we have to do right now. And having the information and having Nikki and being able to say, this is what I know to be true. This tells stories all the time. We talk about that. If you can say, well, this happened, you borrow Nikki's stories. I'm sure she has plenty of them.
Plenty.
That share with you, being like, this happened to this client, this happened to one of my business partners, she's a business partner of yours, had this happen and this happened and this happened, and start telling stories, because people are going to be able to relate to it, and they're going to be like, oh, well, that's that, I heard that, or this happened, or that's familiar. And then they're going to listen and want to pay more attention, because everyone wants the hero at the end, or everyone wants the movie to end in the best possible light. They don't want this doom and gloom. To be quite truthful, it gets them hooked. But if you can come with a solution, and if you can get them in contact with Nikki and just say, hey, this is what I know to be true. This is a story of someone that I helped, or one of my business partners helped. And here is Nikki, that's a resource that can run your actual numbers. Because what would it look like if that isn't the truth?
Right.
Ask the question, what if this was the truth? Or, I know that I was, even with another part of my coaching, taking someone through a process and just saying, what if that wasn't so? Or what if what you're saying to yourself and the story you're telling yourself isn't the truth? What does the truth look like? So it's just even going into that mindset time and that mindset feel.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact of the matter is that good news doesn't sell. And so, you can apply that to a lot of different areas, especially in the mortgage and real estate industry, especially with all the noise that's around us and all the negativity that surrounds both of our industries pretty much on a continual basis. And so we have to continue to provide that value to each individual person, each individual client in unique ways so that they can understand, so that they have that value of coming back to us for the information and really making sure we are that source for education. We are that source that they can rely on, that's going to be transparent, and really making sure that we have all of our own facts straight and we have the knowledge that we can arm ourselves with to make sure that as we are getting asked questions and as we're going out there and posting on social media and telling our stories and, doing all the things, that we have our facts straight. And, obviously I'm here to help with that. I'm here to help with particular clients, and I know that Angie's there to help coach you through those conversations as well as needed. So it's just, I think it's really important right now, especially as we head into the summer, to make sure we have our information and make sure we know what we're talking about and can speak with confidence.
Yeah, and I love what you said. What if you started off your post or your blog or this with good news doesn't sell?
Yeah.
And here are the facts. And then you
Exactly.
went into it and just said, this is what they said. This is actual. This is what they said. This is actual. This is a story. Want to know more? Reach
Yeah.
out to me. I mean, this is really high time. And I've talked about this for years. Some of the people and some of the real estate agents that I think do amazing on social media are truly the ones that educate. Yes, they post their sold signs and you want to show that you're in production and doing great things, but the ones that come with like these calls, and if you take one thing away every week from this call, which I guarantee you can take more than one thing, if you're taking notes like I am on everything Nikki's talking about, you could have content for the whole week. And if you don't remember it, or if you need to watch the replay or talk to Nikki, that's where you partner with and be like, what should I be educating my audience and social media on, and people that are watching our content? What should that look like this week? I guarantee you, watch Nikki read, like I do with Carrie, do a duet. If you're not on TikTok, get on TikTok or Instagram. Nikki's all over it all the time. Share her information, or just take it, write it down, script it out, and then say it again. Nikki, I'm sure you wouldn't mind.
No, all my stuff is completely shareable. And all of the stuff on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok is completely shareable. On TikTok, it's also available for Stitch, which basically means you can have that picture inside the picture and you can be pointing and, nodding and doing what you need to do based on the content that I have. I do not mind at all. Like I said, spread it around. It's, it's can be valuable information and things for you to post, and it's easy and it's free and it's shareable.
And you don't have to come up with it. I love that. Like, how else could you make it any easier? And it's so valuable. That is why we're here. That is why I'm so passionate about keeping this call going every Monday, because this is information that we need to have and we need to know. I mean, what if one of your clients is just like, yeah, I saw this article in the Wall Street Journal about renting versus owning, and that you should probably be renting for the next 10 years. And you're like, what? And you have no recollection or no idea, and you can't take that conversation anywhere, versus now you've been here, you have some information, you can get in contact with Nikki and be like, well, actually, the facts of that are very far apart. And let me show you why. Or join me for a call with Nikki and we'll explain to you exactly where it's clickbait, or it's not, it's unfortunately not the full picture and the full story. If you're truly wanting, if you just want to debate, that's one thing. I might not have time for that. But if you truly want to understand and you want to the facts, and this will help you in making a decision, then we should absolutely get you in front of Nikki and get you all the information you need to make an informed decision. Because right now, I'm going to tell you, you're very uninformed, and I'm here to inform you with the proper and right and actual information. I mean, how strong and how powerful is that conversation? Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, good. Well, questions, any comments or anything for Nikki? I know if you didn't see last week's, wow, was that powerful on all things like the condo and the association, the financing. That was one of my favorite ones as well. All of them are great, but that I thought was so informative. I learned more in that call about condos and associations and financing than my 10 years of real estate.
Well, there you go.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's certainly not
Really?
easy, but it gives some good quality information that again brings value to those clients who are looking for townhome versus condo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that recorded that I can go back to see?
We'll
Yep,
get it,
all
we'll
recorded.
get that to you, Danny. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a lot of condos down here in Florida, so
Yes,
that's
you do.
definitely something. I'm
Yes, you
battling
do, and
with, I'm
especially in
battling with
Florida.
one right now, trying to get some buyers, and so
Well,
it's,
there you go. Especially in
battle.
Florida, keep in mind with all the new changes to Florida condos with hurricane insurance and reserve requirements, it's always good to call your lender or call me and check in with it and what those requirements need to be so that when you are doing a listing in particular, you know how to list it for financing. And then if you have a buyer that, for example, an FHA buyer or a conventional buyer, that you check the requirements with the HOA before they put the offer on the home. Otherwise, you're going to be doing a lot of work for nothing. So it's one of those things that we can check into, that you can check with the association on as well. You know, I'm very familiar with Florida condo financing and all the ins and outs of it. So if
I
you
have
do
a
questions,
unique one. It's
particular in
actually
Florida.
like non-QM.
Yep.
Like, it can't have any FHA, so it's a tricky little beast, but
It is. So
Keep it down
non-QM
to-
basically speaks to the condo reserve requirements and something within the association that tells you that it can't run under conventional regular financing. However, with that being said, just because it's non-QM doesn't mean you have to have a particular buyer that is super well qualified, because non-QM not only applies to the property type, and that could be the reason, but it could be a more flexible lending option for the buyer as far as requirements aren't going to be as stringent as they are in a conventional or FHA financing. So just keep that in mind.
I love it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So good. Good.
Hey, Nikki, can you explain when you say you buying is better by 250? What is that? I'm a little bit confused on that.
Yep. So basically what I was saying is when the New York Times put out this calculator on they compared a $500,000 purchase to paying $2,000 a month in rent. If we change that and we say, okay, for a home that's $500,000, for you to rent that would be around $3,400 or $3,200. When we do the calculations based on actual numbers, the buy side is better than the rental side. So in other words, you're ahead from an equity position, an investment position, when we take things like down payment and savings into consideration. Based on all the numbers, your buy side is going to be better by about $250,000 over 10 years. Based on today's stats, when appreciation, interest rate, return on investment, things of that nature, versus what they're saying is it's actually better to rent because you'd be about $130,000 ahead. So we could get into the minutia of what exactly goes into that. And if you want to talk, we can talk through that. But the general reality is that when you put real numbers to it, buying is better.
Mhm.
And when you compare just those two scenarios.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
those two scenarios.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
yeah,
And of course, those numbers will change if you're depending on the home price versus the actual rent for that home.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even, and again, it's probably different across the country, but I can tell you, there's nowhere in a 50-mile radius of Minneapolis, Minnesota, that you're really renting for $2,000 a month, at least that I've seen or looked at. So even like a consumer that's actually just thinking, which a lot of people don't think, they just let what they read or hear be truth, should see $2,000. Well, you go look at any place to rent. I mean, I don't know if you want to rent some, and you're definitely not going to get a $500,000 home for $2,000. So even that, taking that piece of information, if you're going to go to social or make a post about it, take the very, very, like, the stupidity of it, for lack of better words, and put a glaring light on it, because it's there. It's just a lot of people are reading it and just glazing over it, or a lot of people, not, I'm generalizing, but people sometimes will read something or hear something and just take it in as truth, and it's just a different perspective and not truth at all. So keep that in mind.
That-
Good. Well, it's 12:20. So anything else before we wrap up? And Danny, I'll get you that call as well from last week. It's phenomenal. You'll love it. And if anyone watching the replay wants to reach out to me, my email is angiegerber@gmail.com or find me in Workplace in EXP.
Can I get a replay too, Angie, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Have a
We'll
great
see you
Monday.
next week.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you.